Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is my adolescence in the 1970s. So today I'll talk about that decade. On January 1, 1970, I was a fourth grade student in elementary school. And on December 31, 1979, I was in college at Duke University in dormitory, House CC on West Campus. So anyway, again, I was in the fourth grade, Miss Seckles' class, this very strict teacher, and remember she used to she called George Washington George Washington. And the last day of school, she had us working. Yeah, she was a real taskmaster. She had us working all up until the dismissal on the last day of school. My best friend in fourth grade was Philip Flanagan. It was kind of a one-way friendship because I really wanted to be his friend very, very much. He had gotten an aquarium with tropical fish, and I also got one for my 10th birthday, May 11th, 1970. I remember he gave me a book about tropical fish, and he inscribed it, happy birthday, Peter, your friend Philip. And I thought, he called me his friend. And he taught me about tropical fish, about, you'd get a pearl gourami and a dwarf gourami, these neon tetras, and there'd be a cleaner fish. Didn't have much luck with these plants. And I think there's something called, rabbit fish or squirrel fish. And anyway, he helped me with that, and that was a lot of fun. I had an aquarium for many years. Actually, in the summer, one summer, he got into model rockets that we would buy at Wings Hobby Shop on Detroit Road in Lakewood, which is just closed in the past year or two. You assemble these rockets, you put them together, and you paint them, and you buy these cartridges and blast them off into the air, and that was fun. We used to do that over in this triangle in front of his house off of Beechcliff Boulevard, where near Kensington Oval, and I think where Fraser runs into Beechcliff. And then he got into photography, and then I remember I was going anything he did I would do, and we were always over at his house. He didn't come to our house, and he was going to get into photography and getting, which in the old days, you'd have a dark room and these pans for soaking prints or soaking the film. And I was going to do the same thing, and then he said to me, "Oh, Peter, can't you do anything on your own?" Because I was just imitating him, and I was very disillusioned, and I guess I was sensitive, or I realized he didn't really want to be my friend that much, and so our friendship kind of diminished, you could say. We saw each other in school. One day, I think it was before Thanksgiving. I went over to his house, and their driveway was very steep. He wasn't at home, no one was at home, and I was on my bicycle, and I headed back down the driveway, and I hit the bicycle hit something in the driveway and stopped, and I went flying through the air and was knocked unconscious. And another time when I banged my head, I think I banged my head too often growing up, and the ambulance came. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but somebody had seen it, a neighbor, and I was taken to the hospital. I don't know if they, to quote Dizzy Dean, they did an x-ray of my head and found nothing. No, I don't think they did an x-ray. I think I probably had a concussion. But anyway, that was kind of interesting. Fourth grade came to an end, and the summer of 1970. I believe the summer of 69, Little League Baseball started for our age group, and I tried out but didn't make it. Didn't make the team. I wasn't good enough. I don't think I had played at all. I didn't play any baseball. And so, but by 1970, my age group, they had to take you, no matter how bad you were. I remember at the tryouts, I had not played baseball, and I went up. I didn't know where to stand as a batter. They were seeing how you could hit, and I saw home plate, and I thought that was a good place to stand. So I stood on home plate. And somebody said, "Come on!" Somebody informed me that that's not where you stand. That's where the ball is pitched. And remember in batting practice, I hit a ball along the foul line. I told my brother, and he said, "Well, which foul line?" And I go, "Well, does it make a difference?" And he said, "Yeah, because if you're a right-hand hitter, if you hit the ball on the third base line, that's good because you're pulling the ball. On the first base line, it's not too good." So anyway, that summer of 1970, I played Little League Baseball over behind Worcester School off Center Ridge, and I was no good. It was, that was the beginning of my long, long quest to become a great baseball player that I think is over now because I can't even hardly run. Physically, I've deteriorated, and but it went on for many, many years. And even though I was really pretty bad, I'd go up to home plate knowing I would strike out. Yeah, that's just how it was, and I couldn't make plays in the field. So yeah, that's what I started doing. Summer 1970. Yeah, and then in the fall, the school year started. Grade 5, we had Mrs. Neuer, grade 5. She had a bent nose. At the end of her nose, kind of bent. She was a wonderful teacher, really, really good, and a little bit strict, not too strict. He was funny. She was smart. She was real strong, real good. Good teacher, wonderful teacher. One day, Kurt McKnight and I think it was Bill Meyer, they were kicking each other under what they used to call playing footsies, kicking each other under their desks, and I think it was Mrs. Neuer had them stand in front of the class and play footsies in front of us, and we were all enjoying that. They were embarrassed, and they were kind of, languidly kicking each other in front of us. We were all smiling and laughing. So that was grade 5. Actually, to back up a little bit, earlier at the end of grade 4, in April, we went to Jamaica for vacation. My parents decided to try a new place. I got very sick in Jamaica, and I was in the hospital. I was sick to my stomach. I almost had my appendix removed, and had good medical care. I was a good doctor. My mom came to visit me, and she said there was a guy in the bed next to her, and next to me, and she kept talking to the guy, and she talked so much he finally got up and left. This other patient. Anyway, it was a good doctor, and he was monitoring my blood count, and he decided it was not my appendix, so I was released from the hospital, and it was very small, just a very tiny hospital. And Mark carried me to the car, and I called him my hero, my older brother Mark. Yeah, I remember in our room on the 3rd floor, he had like a plastic skeleton arm wedged into the corner of the mattress springs, on the bottom of the top bunk springs, and that was cool. I thought that was pretty cool. At night, Mark would be studying. I'd be in bed. He'd be studying at the far end of the room at his desk with a fluorescent lamp. We used to gargle with Listerine to try to prevent colds, although it didn't work. And the 3rd floor had no shower. There was just a toilet and sink in the bathroom, and I think actually there was only one. The 2nd floor bathroom was had the only place where you could bathe, and we didn't bathe every day back then. So anyway, grade 5 started, and it was a good school year with Mrs. Neuer. Grade 5 was a good school year. It used to bother me that I was sick a lot. I remember, I think in 4th grade, I missed the 2nd and 3rd week of school. I'd be home sick, in bed, in my parents' room, watching TV. My mother was very loving to me when I would be sick, and we couldn't bathe when we got sick. That really made it worse, I think. We couldn't, and so my sister Pam got into vitamin C. I remember I was all excited. She was talking about how vitamin C could cure the common cold, and she came home from school. Grade 5 was a good year. This is the fall of 1970, and into 71, we went to the Bahamas. My parents decided they liked the Bahamas better, so we went back to the Bahamas in the spring of 1971, and we stayed for a month. Mark and Pam came down for the second just for 2 weeks because they were in high school and couldn't take the time off. Mark was a senior in high school, Pam was a junior. They brought down 2 friends. Mark brought down Chip Richmond, and Pam brought down Holly Dreger. Near the end, we were going home, scheduled to fly home on Easter Sunday, actually. And then Pamela got sick on Friday. She was sick. Not too bad, but then on Saturday, much worse. And then after dark on Saturday, she was very, very sick, but we could not get her to a hospital because we arrived, came and left on seaplanes that would land in the ocean, and they said they could not fly at night or land in the ocean at night. It wasn't safe. So she was very sick. I remember before I went to bed that night, my father asked me to pray for Pam, which I did. I woke up in the morning pretty late, and I remember Patricia woke me up, and she said, "Pam is dead. Pam is dead." And I said, "Really?" Yeah. So I went to the room, and we went and touched her body. There was her dead body there, and didn't really affect me. I was just a kid. I don't know why, but I went outside, and I saw my father crying. I think it was the only time I ever saw him cry. ever. And I said, Dad, why are you crying? And he said his heart was broken. And we were scheduled to leave, and so I remember thinking I had promised my friends I'd bring them all hermit crabs, and I hadn't, I was lazy, I hadn't done that, so went off in the jungle trying to find hermit crabs, and I couldn't find any. So finally, my parents and Pamela's her body, she had died. They went back to Nassau on one plane, and we waited for another plane. In the meantime, the Bahamians who worked on the island, they thought it might be a serious disease she had died from. They brought the mattress down to the beach and burned it, and I thought it was pretty horrifying. So anyway, another plane came, took us to Nassau. We were in Nassau. They did an autopsy in Nassau, found out she had died of diabetes, very sudden juvenile onset diabetes. So anyway, that's it. We flew back to Cleveland. My poor father and my parents. I wasn't affected at the time. I was, I guess, too young. Although I remember, before the funeral, I found an obituary in the newspaper for Pam, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to cut out this obituary and put it in my wallet. I thought that was the right thing to do, where you have these places where you can put photographs in the wallet. So I did, and I found that wallet recently, and I still had the obituary still there. So they had... we had the funeral, and they had a day at Elmwood Park in her memory to clean up the park, clean up the garbage that people had left there. That was in her memory because she was very into the environmental movement, which was very strong at that time in our country, to protect the environment, fighting pollution, which had become such a big problem. And she actually, as a Girl Scout, she had sold 1,000 geraniums to raise money for their trip to Mexico, and we had these all in the garage. Her prize was a golden geranium. It was a plastic geranium, spray-painted gold they gave to her. So that was really something. I think she was volunteering at a nursing home. And as a candy striper, she got involved in this cough movement, clean air and water forever, I think, or something. And then, so this was real tough, losing Pam. And I remember in school one day, but my life pretty much continued the same. I was funny in school. I remember one day in school, we're getting ready for dismissal, and this one boy, it was a couple weeks later, a boy said, I'm sorry about your sister, and then everybody stopped laughing, because I used to joke around a lot. Very hard on my parents, and this was devastating for them, losing their daughter. And this one boy coming home from school, he said, aren't you glad your sister's dead? Neighbor down the street, and I told my parents, and they called, and he got in big trouble, and I think he was just a kid, and probably had trouble with his older sister getting along. So anyway, my life continued the same for the end of 5th grade. Although at home, things had changed, but I wasn't affected yet. I couldn't make my parents laugh anymore. That was the one thing that I noticed. Although in school, I was still a happy guy, real happy in school, and anyway, so the summer of '71 came along. I was in Little League Baseball again. My father was my manager that year. Yeah, just imagine, his daughter died, and he did this, and wow, really something. And he put me in as a pitcher. I wasn't good, and I remember this game. I gave up 10 runs in the first inning, terrible. And I don't know why he put me in, because I didn't have any speed. I was very slow. I heard the guys in the dugout talking about, oh man, he's just laying it right over the plate. He can cream the ball. And well, I had one game, I was in right field. I was brought in, I think, for the very end of a game, and I did get a fly ball to end a game, which could be considered a save. One game I was playing left field, excuse me, and I was such a terrible player. Like I said, I would strike out coming up. I would strike out a lot, and I really didn't have much chance of hitting the ball. I didn't have enough batting practice, and I didn't have physical strength really. One game in left field, I was determined to make a play, and I thought, next time I'm going to make a play, I'm not going to screw up. And so a fly ball was hit to deep left, so I thought, I'm going to catch this ball. I ran back, ran right into the left field wall, outfield fence. Knocked myself unconscious again, another time that I was knocked unconscious, and woke up. My dad was there, and the players, they took me out of the game. So for that game, at least, I was a hero. When you knock yourself unconscious playing sports, people admire you, or your peers admire you. They used to have an ice cream place on Center Ridge called Penguin, and my memory is that if you hit a home run, you could get a ice cream banana split. And my father and I would go sometimes after games, and we just get just get like a plain 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream because that's all I was worthy. I wasn't worthy. I mean, my father probably would have bought me a banana split, but I thought, oh no, you have to hit a home run. So I'd see the guys with their banana splits. I was very jealous of them. I told this to my wife years later, and she bought me a banana split in the Philippines at Enchanted Kingdom. And I was like crying, while eating this thing. And I finally got my banana split. And then when I was in Marion, Ohio in 2008, my friend Brent Less, I did the same thing. I told him the story, and he bought me a banana split at Dairy Queen on North Main Street. So anyway, Little League Baseball was a very painful experience. Actually, I was a terrible player, but I didn't quit. I have to give myself credit for that. I kept trying. Up until I was 36. I'll talk about this later. I tried out for the Guam Olympic baseball team because my drive for still had that drive to become a great baseball player. I didn't make the team. And another big thing, a very big thing, happened in the summer of 1971. I joined the Boy Scouts. Yeah, and became a tenderfoot. Went to Beaumont. My first thing on Boy Scouts, we went to Beaumont Scout Camp for a week, summer camp. Troop 490. We met at Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Rocky River on Hilliard. And I went to Beaumont, and Mark came. He had graduated from high school. Mark came, and this was like his last Boy Scout event, and my first one. And I had a really good time. I was Mark Ray's young little brother, and I had a really good time in Boy Scouts. And in the years to come, Boy Scouts was probably the best thing in the 70s about my life, really, aside from the fact that I had really good parents. But Boy Scouts was tremendous, going camping with guys and the camaraderie and, the whole camping experience is very good for kids, for boys, or for anyone. You come, you have to set up the campsite, set up the tents and the tarp, and you have to go get water, and you have to collect firewood. You have to, start fires, cook for cooking. You have to cook your meals. We always cooked our meals, and you have to clean up afterward, clean up the dirty pots and so forth for the next meal, and then you have your tent and your sleeping bag. You're sleeping in a tent. It might be raining and there's mosquitoes. It might be snow and mud, and all of it's good. It's all a wonderful experience. And I had so much fun in Boy Scouts over the years, up until 1978, really. So anyway, summer 1971. So 72, in the fall, I started 6th grade at Kensington Elementary School, my last year there. And I had a good year. Again, I wasn't really affected by what had happened, this tragedy in our family. I was still a happy guy in school and enjoying life. And then we graduated in 1972 from Kensington. And we became aware that, we were going to move to the junior high. We became aware that there were actually 5 elementary schools in Rocky River, and that we would be joining these other kids from other schools, at least. And there was the Bates School, there was Beach School, Worcester, and Goldwood. So I think and then we called ourselves the Kensington Kings, and the other kids from the other schools we gave them derogatory names like the Bates Bastards, something like that. So anyway, the summer of 72 came, and I'm not sure. Some of these years I went to the CYC, Cleveland Yacht Club, summer camp. I didn't like it. It was sailing camp, and where you were taught how to sail and go out in these boats, and we had swimming, and sometimes we go on motorboats. Sometimes we did I think water skiing. I didn't really like it. I think I did it just one summer. I don't know when it was. And we rode our bicycles, Patricia and I, over to the Collarts, and then walked down the hill, the hill to because it was a real steep hill. You really couldn't ride a bicycle down that hill. It's too steep. So we did that, and anyway, so that was the summer of 72. Actually, in the fall of 71, I joined we formed a new patrol in Troop 490. I had been in the Roadrunner Patrol, and then in the fall, and then this Will Thomas I didn't really like. He became the patrol leader, so we decided we formed the Hawk Patrol. So early on, I was a leader in Boy Scouts. Still real young, 12 years old, and it was challenging being a leader. The summer of 72 at Beaumont was really tough. Summer of 71 had been so easy. Summer of 72 was tough. I was a leader. I think we got a lot of rain. It was tough, and I was overwhelmed with responsibility. And we used to have these hot pot holders to pick up hot pots. They were like pliers and had a little hook. And they were very important, in cooking meals. And we had lost that. I remember one day I was just overwhelmed with stress and worry and so forth with all this responsibility for these other guys and to get things done. And I went off into the woods a short distance, to pray. Yeah. And then I saw this sunlight came out and illuminated a small dead tree, which was in the shape of a cross. I'm not making it up. It's true. And saw this dead tree, and it was like a cross with the sunlight shining on it. And then after that, I came back to the campsite, and we found those darn hot pot picker-uppers, or whatever you call them. It's like these pliers. And we got through the week. Yeah, and I had tough time. I had some tough, it was good. It's character building, having responsibility and facing the elements. Not easy, camping, where especially if you're backpacking. We had trips to Tinnerman Canoe Base in Ontario, Canada. Those could be, and the first one was very tough because of the mosquitoes. And you're canoeing during the day, and then you make camp every night. Did a lot of fishing. I never caught a fish because I was disappointed. I didn't have the right lures. I had lures from the Bahamas. We went to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. Both of these, that was a very long bus ride. Yeah, and that was both times, or once at Tinnerman, once at Philmont. I was a crew leader, so I had responsibility. This was even tougher, because you're in Philmont. It's very dry. Every day we had to hike. We were hiking from campsite to campsite, and it was dry, and we had to carry our food with us, and. So that was a good experience going to these, and we had we actually had a place we went camping near the Coliseum, where the Cleveland Cavaliers used to play, and they had rock concerts. One time we actually went to a Cavs game. We went camping. We called it the Boondocks. We went camping. We walked over to a Cavs game at night, on a Saturday night. And another time we actually went to a David Bowie concert. We scheduled it. We set up camp on Saturday morning, and then Saturday night we walked over, or some of us walked over to this David Bowie concert. So anyway, yeah, Boy Scouts was a tremendous experience. In the fall of '72, I started junior high, grade 7, at the junior high school, and this was tough. This is when my life became hard, I would say. Life is going to be hard. Sooner or later, I'd have these easy early years. And grade 7, you had all the 5 elementary schools coming together, sending their graduates. So it was just 7 and 8. And so like 80% of the kids I didn't know. They were from these 4 other elementary schools. And I found it very tough, challenging, and we're going through adolescence. So for the first time in gym class, you had to take off all your clothes and take a shower, which was kind of hard being naked in front of other boys. We had to wear a jock strap, and then we had, we were moving from classroom to classroom with different teachers. Back in elementary school, we're in the same room with one teacher, pretty much. And then all of a sudden, you're going from classroom to classroom. And the kids seemed to be pretty difficult, In elementary school, it seemed like a mellow community. And I think the little kids kind of softened the older kids. But grade 7 and 8 kids were all like 12, 13, 14 years old. And the kids were hard on each other. It was a tough environment, and I couldn't keep up. I was really intimidated by the whole thing, by other kids who might maybe make fun of you, or bullies. And then the academic pressure started. I felt for myself. I felt this pressure, and to get good grades. I got a C+ in math my first quarter, and this was unacceptable. We were supposed to all get A's in school. I tried out for the wrestling team. I think I was on the team, I guess, for a week before I quit, because I thought, I want to go home after school. This is all too hard. And and so, life became hard. Junior high, tough. That's part. This is a tough planet we're living on. If you study history as I have, you realize, and it really wasn't as tough as it was. Just my way of thinking. I was very weak, I think, and. It was still a real nice community. It was also, I think I was also affected by my sister's death now, because I had these sad parents, and then I changed. I stopped being funny. I became quiet, and became a good student. I did get all A's. Loved Boy Scouts. Was very active in Boy Scouts. And then another thing that changed my life. The last two games of the baseball season for the Cleveland Indians were a doubleheader. And I was invited by my friend Rick Donaldson and his father and my father. The four of us went. We sat on these front row seats, Standard Oil seats, front row behind home plate, just to the left of the foul screen. And it was a doubleheader against the Baltimore Orioles. And Mr. Donaldson said that it could be the end of Brooks Robinson's career, the great Baltimore third baseman, although he actually played 2 more years. But anyway, at that doubleheader, I became a Cleveland sports fan, a diehard Cleveland sports fan. I thought, I hadn't paid much attention to Cleveland sports before that. We'd gone to some games. We went to the straight A games. If you got straight A's, there'd be free tickets. I'd been to a few games back in, I guess, the late 60s. I remember seeing, Ken Hawk Harrelson and some of these guys, Roy Foster and Sam McDowell. But anyway, that game in 72, I thought, I want to become a part of this. I want to know what's going on. I didn't know very much. I was ignorant. But boy, I learned. I became a real fanatic on all the Cleveland sporting teams. And since that was the end of the baseball season, I turned my attention to the Cleveland Browns and followed them during that 72 season. They had a good year. Mike Phipps was the quarterback. They got to the playoffs. They gave the Dolphins a good game in the playoffs. The Dolphins won it all, went undefeated. So I became and then as the seasons would pass, you go from, and after that football Browns season, then the Cavs were playing, Cleveland Cavaliers, and actually the Cleveland Barons hockey team, I think, were still playing. And I think we had 2 hockey teams. And then the Barons expired. They moved to Jacksonville, Florida. We had a new team, the Cleveland Crusaders. And Nick Maletti was this tremendous fellow who owned the Indians and was the founder of the Cavs. Too bad when the Cavs won the title, they didn't honor Nick Maletti. No mention of him. He's the guy who founded the Cavaliers in 1970. And then the Crusaders and this new hockey league, the WHA, which folded eventually. And Maletti built the Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio, which didn't really work out too well, but we had some good years there with the Cavs, especially in 76, the Miracle at Richfield season. So anyway, and in the fall of 72 was a presidential election. Our family supported George McGovern against Richard Nixon. And McGovern lost badly. I came to school one day wearing a McGovern pin, a little button. And some kid grabbed it and took it, and Rocky River was very much pro-Nixon. I got that pin back. It just said McGovern 72 on it, and it was kind of smashed. I still have it in our home in Manila in the Philippines. So 72 election. So anyway, and then summer of 73, that was my first summer following the Cleveland Indians. And oh, wow, was I excited when the season started. I love that year. They finished 71 and 91, didn't have a good year, but I love the guys. And I'm very nostalgic about that team, the guys in the field. Buddy Bell was playing third, Frank Duffy, Jack Brohammer, Chris Chambliss, Rusty Torres in center, George Hendrick, Oscar Gamble, John Ellis, Gaylord Perry, our great starting pitcher, and Dick Tidrow, Milt Wilcox, Brent Strum. I just wrote him a letter. He's the pitching coach for the Houston Astros. Won the World Series last year. 73, Cleveland Indians. I really got into it. That was, and then in the fall, and again, my life continued with Boy Scouts, going to Boy Scouts meetings on Monday nights. I loved the meetings. We'd line up in our patrols. And I was rising through the ranks. I was like, become a second-class scout, first class, then star, life, Eagle. I became an Eagle Scout early in 78. So in the fall of 73, I was in 8th grade. Same thing. I was kind of depressed. I would say I was depressed, but I was a good student. I had friends. We started playing sports, actually, with ourselves. I had my experience with Little League Baseball, which was tough, but we played a lot. Had a lot of fun. Doug Kirkle usually organized these games. Over the years, we played a lot of games. We played a lot of baseball games at Rocky River Park. Sometimes we played baseball up at Elmwood Park, the baseball diamonds there. Played a lot of football at Elmwood Park in that big field. Played some basketball at Kensington later, and then up at the high school. We played a lot. We weren't that good. We had fun. We talked about the team. We were all Cleveland sports fans. In Boy Scouts, they used to call me Uncle Pete. I liked that. And our first scoutmaster was Will Hagan, but then he'd done it long enough, so he bowed out. And Cliff Euchre was the scoutmaster that I remembered the best. And I really admired him. Was close to him. I thought he did a good job, and I looked up to him. So in the fall of '74, started high school. At the high school, we moved from the. So the next 4 years were there, and it was pretty much the same. I was a good student, and I was subdued in school, I think, kind of intimidated by kids. I did get bullied somewhat. I remember Tom Heine bullied me. A friend of mine, Buddy McKenna, and we had made fun of a kid who was like a special kid had some problems, and Tom actually was standing up for him, and boy, he terrorized me for a few days, or he grabbed me by the collar one time, dragged me down the hall, and I think I deserved it, really, because we had, although I don't know, but that's what we did. We had a friend, John Pomeroy. We made fun of him. That was terrible. And now I sent him an email where I mentioned some of the. We called him Little Johnny Pomeroy. He is but an apple boy, and that hurt him. And in this email I sent, he was offended and he didn't respond. It was too bad because we just made contact. We have to be careful about other people and their feelings. So high school was pretty much the same. I was a good student. Eventually, I had a paper route, a Cleveland Press afternoon route. I delivered newspapers in the afternoon. Really enjoyed that route. Picked it up over on the corner of Elmwood and Kenwood. Go over there after school, pick up the papers. I used to read the sports section first thing. I had a bicycle and had these baskets I'd put the papers in. It was a very easy route. It was maybe 30 papers. And I made about $8 a week, but I enjoyed delivering the paper. It was a leisurely route. I wasn't really doing it for the money because I didn't really want to buy stuff like other kids maybe. But I would give the money to my father to put in the bank for my college education, and it was kind of a hassle for him, to deal with such a small amount of money. But I enjoyed delivering the newspaper, Cleveland Press. And one day I remember I saw the headline that Jim Perry, the Indians traded to Oakland for Blue Moon Odom. That was exciting. And that summer, I think '75, we're talking. Now that was in, '75. The Indians signed Frank Robinson. He became the first African American manager in baseball, and he was also a player manager. He hit a home run on opening day, and the team had all red uniforms. And they traded for Boog Powell, sometime before opening day. He was a big slugger for first base. We traded Dave Duncan, and I was happy. Boog Powell was a star player, and he gave us one good year. I came in, I was playing in the orchestra. I played the trombone in the orchestra because Patricia wanted me to join it because she was in it, I guess. And I overheard the girl said, "Why do we want Boog Powell? What do we want?" She was very angry that we made this trade. And I kept quiet. I was intimidated because I didn't want to have a conflict with this girl. She was very strong-spirited. And I saw her former boyfriend years ago, and it turns out that her family, and she knew Dave Duncan, the guy we traded, who was handsome, had long hair, good-looking fellow, catcher. And her family had been doing some business with him. I think he was helping to promote their business, so she felt bad. She knew him personally, and he was traded. So I didn't know that at the time. So the high school years were passing. In '76, our family supported Jimmy Carter for president, and he won that election. And against Gerald Ford, the incumbent, Richard Nixon had resigned because of the Watergate scandal. And '76 was a great time. In the spring, the Cleveland Cavaliers had a tremendous season at the Coliseum. We didn't go to many games at the old Coliseum the Coliseum because it was kind of long drive and it's winter time when the Cavs were playing. But I listened to those games on the radio. Those fellows, Dick Snyder and Jimmy Clemens, Jim Jones, Nate Thurmond, Bingo Smith, and they beat the Washington Bullets in the first round in a very thrilling 7-game series and lost the East Finals against the Boston Celtics. I used to enjoy Monday Night Football with Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford, and Don Meredith, although I just watched the first half. It was too late to watch after that. MASH was a TV show I enjoyed, this set in the Korean War. It's an anti-war movie with Alan Alda. Funny, dramatic show. All in the Family with the character Archie Bunker. Very, very funny program. And so time was passing. And I was in high school. Junior year, I got a job as a dishwasher at this restaurant at Westgate Shopping Center. So it was kind of depressing. I don't know why I did it. My friend Joe Schaefer encouraged me to do it. I didn't really need the money because I didn't spend money, but I did it. And I got after school. I take the bus up from. I walk over to catch a bus on Lake Road up to Westgate, and worked from like 4 till 8 or something like that, and washing dishes. A pretty dreary job, and I have to come home and do homework. Yeah, so I did that for about 6 months, maybe during the school year, and then I tried out for the baseball team in the spring of '77, and I didn't make the team. I quit my job to try out for the team. Didn't make the team. I actually tried out for the junior varsity team as well, but I was terrible. I remember during the they were hitting ground balls. Man, I couldn't. I don't think I could. I wasn't fielding well. I wasn't able to stop those balls. I couldn't hit. And I didn't even have I was wearing my father's socks. They're all droopy. I didn't even have our jogging pants. These. When we were actually outside for a while, it was cold, and one day I brought pajamas that I thought looked like jogging pants, and I put them on. And a guy said, "Hey, you're wearing pajamas." So, and I took them off, and was ashamed, and just put on my, regular sports shorts. So, anyway, by senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to be an athlete. I really want. So I ended up joining the cross country team, and I ran cross country for that senior year, and they'd take anybody, and I didn't do well. I was finished back in the pack. I'd finished near the end, one of the last people to finish races, but I stuck it out. After school, we'd run for an hour every day, I think, and then these cross-country races were real long, but I did that. And then senior year, I was fed up with my life of being depressed, being kind of a loser. I felt I was a loser, and good student, but not popular and not very happy. So I got into drinking in a big way, drinking and marijuana. And I actually didn't even know anything about, the youth culture of the time, and specifically music. In the late summer of '77, our family went to Uncle Bill's, this shopping place, and I bought an album. I never had an album before, a record album. Peter Frampton Comes Alive. It was a 2-set album, and I bought that. And my Patty's like, "Oh, Peter's buying an album." So I was trying to be a teenager. And I approached my friend Keith Euchre early on in senior year, and I said, "Keith, I want to get into partying." And at first he was reluctant. He didn't. Later guys were giving him a hard time. They thought he corrupted me. But eventually, Keith, I knew him from Boy Scouts. He helped me get into drinking and marijuana, and taught me all about the popular music for teenagers of the time. I ended up going to some rock concerts at the Coliseum. Went to Genesis. They were, I think, my favorite band. And then they had Queen. I don't know, I went to see a Queen concert, a Yes concert as well. One of those bands had, I think it was Queen, "We Are the Champions, My Friend." That became my favorite song. I had a clock radio that would go off in the morning and wake me up with a music radio station. And sometimes that song would be playing. I'd be very, very happy when it was on. And so this was a big mistake I made in my life. Boy, did I get into drinking and marijuana use in a big way. And I was actually high in school, smoking marijuana before school, and I was taking tough classes, physics and calculus, and it was terrible. I'm surprised these teachers never told my parents, because they didn't. And I did make it through high school, and my grades declined as a senior because of this drinking and drug use. But I graduated and near the top of the class, and so at summer of '70, I got my Eagle Award in January. I was an Eagle Scout. It's kind of depressing because I was Mr. Euchre, who was led the ceremony. He knew I was drinking and taking drugs, although my parents really didn't. My mom, I think, had her suspicions, but my dad, he believed in me. Summer of '78, I was out of high school, graduated. I started working for the city of Rocky River. I remember going to a party, and the girl says, "What are you doing this summer?" I said, "Oh, I'm working for the city." And she said, "Oh, all the guys are saying that. We should have said we're working for the suburb, because Rocky River is a suburb." I worked as I worked with Byron Spooner one day. I was real happy. We were cutting grass on the city property, doing different things for the city. A lot of it was cutting grass, collecting garbage, and And then I got a job. I did that for just a while. I was working as a lifeguard up at the outdoor pool. And then I got a job actually at the county coroner's office because I was pre-med. I was supposed to be a doctor. My parents wanted me to be a doctor. So I worked at the coroner's office at night, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and we would receive dead bodies that would be brought in for autopsies. Yeah, so I'd take the bus to the east side at night, come home in the morning with the cleaning ladies. We're coming to the suburbs. And then at the end of the summer, I worked for the city of Rocky River again at Rocky River Park. And then actually I'd been accepted at Duke University, but for January admission. So I had time, and I ended up going out to the Bahamas for like 3 months with Keith Euchre. Lost a lot of weight, got real skinny. And we read a lot of books. I think I read the Bible. I read some Solzhenitsyn, read War and Peace. Started Duke in January '79, and I was depressed. I had actually shaved my head in the Bahamas. And that first semester, I did well. I got good grades, but I wanted to have a girlfriend. You know, I didn't have. I was shy and kind of depressed. Summer of '79, I took a class and played tennis and actually had a pretty good time. Made some friends, played frisbee. And I think I kissed a girl for the first time, Karen Adams, and was happy about that. And then this is summer of '79. Oh, and I worked that summer for United States Steel on the Irving S. Olds, this iron ore freighter carrying iron ore from up in Duluth, Michigan, down to the steel mills in Lorain and Conneaut, Ohio. And then in the fall, I started back at Duke. My sophomore year, I was in House CC. Now we're getting to the end of this talk here. And then I got into partying in a big way. I was, again, still pre-med. And, man, I was getting crazy. I was drinking a lot and getting high during the week. Yeah, no good. Missed classes. My grades really plummeted. And that's how 1979, the 70s came to an end as I was a student at Duke University, my second year, and I was deteriorating because of drugs and alcohol. So the 70s were some decade, lots of changes. I think the first 10 years of life, we obviously changed a tremendous amount from a baby to a 10-year-old. And then from age 10 to 20, look at all the changes. I'd been this innocent 10-year-old and then went through a lot in the 70s. And it's all good. It all leads us to the road, the spiritual life, to the road to God, and happiness through God union, yoga meditation. So there's no regrets. It's all good because God created this world. It's a wonderful world because God does exist and God loves us. Therefore, everything's okay. Next time I'll talk about the 1980s, my young adulthood. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.